Happy Saturday, ladies and gentlemen, Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, for another jam-packed daily market update. If you're new around here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because we drop one of these every single day around 1 p.m. UK time to help you guys stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening in the crypto space, but also the broader markets. And this is going to be predominantly a daily market update focused on the broader markets. Yesterday, we had non-farm payroll. They came out at a pretty horrific miss. It was 22,000 that came out. The projection was 75,000. And actually, we are seeing weakening labor statistics. The good, but potentially also bad news on this is the Fed and their rate cuts are going to become more imminent and obvious and potentially larger sized. Actually, what we saw on the back end of this and the unemployment number rising to 4.3 was a shift in projected rate expectations in regards to them coming down. 25 basis points was likely in this September meeting that's about 11 days away. Today, it's now actually starting to show up that it might be a 50 basis point cut that takes place. And we know that the Fed Waller, we listened to what he had to say yesterday, is very much backing this. So this is having ramifications on the bigger kind of market picture, and crypto is a part of that. And ultimately, September we knew was going to be a tricky month. Historically, the worst performing month, if you look at it over a duration for the stock market, certainly the S&P. And it's not such a great month for crypto. And we've just come off the back end of August, which was a tricky month. But the good news is, guys, I think we're into a sensational March towards the end of the year. And then I want to talk to you guys a little bit about something pretty colossal happening to the tune of another Bretton Woods moment. Where if you look at Bretton Woods or the Nixon shock, the global monetary system's changed. I think we're looking at another one of those today that crypto plays a major role in, an enabling role in fact. And I'll talk to you guys about that in regards to what we're seeing with speculation on BRICS-backed gold currencies. Tether just yesterday announced that they were going to actually start to invest in gold miners. We know that there's a divergence right now between central banks dumping US treasuries, and it's a US debt system that we kind of live on, and actually raising their gold. And I think with the introduction of crypto, what you're going to get is another Bretton Woods where actually, just like the previous ones, the thing that backed the global monetary system changes, and actually crypto is going to take it away perhaps from any one entity like the United States and make it global in nature. Through people being able to trust these distributed ledgers and value can just be interchanged. Really high level topic, but we'll discuss it. That could be why we're looking at a breaking down for the Dixie. Yesterday, you had non-farm payrolls. Payrolls rise by 22,000 in August, less than expected in further signs of hiring slowdown. Non-farm payrolls increased just 22,000 for the month, lower than the 75,000 forecast, while the unemployment rate rose to 3.5. There is historically a correlation between the markets and the unemployment rate. When unemployment is at a high, markets at a low. When unemployment's at a low, markets at a high. To give you some context in regards to where unemployment is today, it's at the same level that we were at in 2017, 2016, and just before the 2000s, so 1999. So it's still at low levels where markets have been at highs, but the problem, the kind of question you have to ask is the trend now that this bucks up? And given its correlation with markets, this could mean a downtrend for the markets, which if it continues to buck up, there's an if there, which is kind of contrary to what we're expecting, certainly with the S&P 500, that we think has had its bear market on the back end of Trump's tariffs and is now embarking onto higher ground. We think there's a good time ahead for the S&P based on what it's just done. Historically, every time you've engulfed a bear market of 20% pullbacks for the S&P and gone on to higher ground, you've continued for a period of up to years. We think that's the state of play. There is going to be time periods like what we're currently going through when you have kind of negative headwinds. September is a month and this kind of jobs data. So two negatives yesterday. Interesting, Lucknit, who's the Secretary of Commerce, now essentially saying jobs reports will get more accurate before BLS reveals sluggish August hiring. Interesting. There was, some of the Feds were looking at a sort of slowing down. And I suppose the only positive, but perhaps could be perceived as a negative out of this, is the probabilities of rate cuts. This is according to the CME group. They now have an 89% probability that they're going to cut rates by 25 basis points. It's now even gone to 11% that they do a 50 bip cut on the back end of all the data that we had yesterday. And are rate cuts good or bad? There's a kind of stigma that rate cuts equal sort of implosion, and that's why they're cutting rates. Well, if that's the context why they're cutting rates, yeah, but we're not really seeing that yet. Yes, we're seeing slowing down in jobs numbers. Yes, we're seeing slowing down or an increase in unemployment. It's not like high levels, but it's creeping up, which is something to watch. The Fed are going to cut rates. Can they get this just right, or are we going to see a catastrophe? And they've got an interesting kind of tightrope to walk, not just in regards to figuring out where things are going in the future and how to adjust correctly, but also in regards to the debt markets that are continuing to sell off. They're about to lower yields on that via lowering interest rates, so as far as refinance goes anyway. And what you've got is them lowering, but at the opposite sort of side of things, the actual free markets yields actually climbing. The only exception in regards to the ones that I can see right now are probably Singapore. Singapore doing quite well in regards to their debt markets and their sovereign markets. The rest of the world is kind of really struggling, and there's this kind of perhaps emperor awakening of the fact that he has no close with a lot of these debt markets, which is going to bring us perfectly onto our next point. There's a real, or our next kind of section of this, there's a real kind of question right now in regards to gold and treasuries. This is foreign central banks hold more gold than treasuries. This is the first time since 1996. And gold has literally gone, I mean, we've had a prediction on gold for a hell of a long time, and it's made it. I mean, that cup and handle that we were looking at, gold has achieved it. Just to show you the gold chart, we'll get rid of the S&P and everything. I mean, this literally achieved a target that we were looking at in 2022. All the way back here, we were looking at this as a cup and handle. This has perfectly been met. I've just released my cup and handle course on Patreon. Well worth doing, guys. Certainly as it relates to the total 2, total 3, and others right now. Kind of predicts where the crypto market's going as a whole. But gold's doing really well. What's the context of gold doing well? We know that central banks are moving towards gold over treasuries. There's a kind of change, I think, taking place or being highlighted by the debt markets. And I think there's a major monetary change. The US kind of reigns supreme. It's a dollar, it's called a petrodollar system that we have. The question is, why do we have that system? Is there an alternative? And are we starting to see that alternative be enabled with crypto, and what does this mean for the kind of global order of things? And this is at a time when actually I'm looking at the dollar breaking down from a channel that it's been in since Bitcoin was introduced to us. What's the context of this coming down? What's the context of a $300 silver, I always ask, or gold continuing to get to, 5K or whatever it may be? It's one that sees the dollar come down and that kind of role change. And there's lots of talk right now, which is where I want to bring us in regards to sort of a crypto-enabled gold-backed currency. Tokenized gold, I understand the skepticism or the pushback that's given to it. If you're a gold bug, one of the principles you love is that you hold it and take care of it yourself. You don't want to give that custody up for a receipt, right? But one reason people moved off the gold standard, or people gave that receipt up in the first place, was for convenience. Effectively, you can make gold instantly tradable global, and the ownership actually represented via, these cryptographic proofs. It's an interesting paradigm, but Mike Novogratz actually has a pretty shocking prediction in regards to in the next 12 months what he thinks we're going to see. I want to dive into that, and then we're going to look at some other industry players moving towards gold.
I'm not going to call it prediction. I'm just going to, a little Nostradamus, that there's a BRICS stablecoin that comes out in the next 12 months that is backed by gold. Not fully, but partially. Because I know they're doing a BRICS currency and they're going to want to have their stablecoin, and, what better message that this has got gold in it. And so I don't think the gold phenomena is going away.
So this is interesting. This is relevant in regards to the kind of macroeconomic picture, or the global macro sort of scenario, because what I think we're looking at is a move away from the system as we know it, how the world works monetarily, and alternatives, probably multiple, be introduced. And instead of having to rely on one asset for clearment and settlement, which we've had to do because we haven't had things like distributed ledgers, actually you can use multiple things. I don't have this whole thing figured out in regards to just quite how tomorrow's global system works. It's not a one world currency they're going to implement. It's a one world system where you're going to have all forms of value basically be able to interact and interchange. That's what's coming. And the interesting thing is Tether just yesterday, stablecoin group Tether holds talks to invest in gold miners. Boss of crypto company that posted first half profits of $5.7 billion has called for the precious metal natural Bitcoin. And I think there are people historically that have actually tried to implement gold-backed currencies. It's never ended well for them, personally. And I think when I kind of look at where the dollar's at, I think the Dixie's going to break down. And I don't just think that because of the Dixie. I think that because of the Great British Pound versus the dollar, the Euro versus the dollar, the Yen versus the dollar. I think they're all going to make moves against the dollar. And I think that has everything to do with its currency being weakened. The contradictory thing is this is at a time when they're introducing stablecoins, which are going to introduce dollar demand, but potentially increase treasury issuance at a time when these things are struggling. There's a lot going on. Really, one of the takeaways I want from you guys on this is that something major is happening. One of the recent economists on the 10th of March showed this. It showed Trump with a kind of petrol can and a burning dollar about to set the kind of dollars underneath him alight. And this reminds me of the 1988 Economist, where they spoke about through the kind of burning of the dollar system or the moving on from it, a phoenix would rise from the ashes. There happens to be the Stellar Lumen sign in there, and this would be a new world currency. I don't think it's a currency. I think it's a system. I don't think we're ever going to have one world currency to rule them all. I think you're going to have to get everyone to agree on that. That's probably not going to work. So what you're going to need to do is create one system that perhaps somebody has control over that essentially has control of all the currencies within it. And that's the new one world system that we're moving on to. Crypto is enabling that. It's one reason I'm so sure it's going to succeed. But there's something colossal going on. And I think in the next sort of 12 months, given where crypto's at, we're going to see some pretty insane things. Never lose sight of that, troops. I'm going to love and leave you on that note. Thanks everyone for watching. If you enjoyed the content, like as always, appreciate it as a comment. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.